Nothing like another video to overview everything we just learned in videos 1 through 3. I think this is a great way to sum it up in a bullet point format. So let's begin. I thought it a good idea to just do a single video that addresses each topic through a bullet point format. I just said this video covers what was discussed in the last 3.5 videos on the Caste, the law, great taking, and MMT, or modern monetary theory. Okay, let's begin with Caste. Bullet points. Caste is a social contract that one is born into, subject to this group's type of social stratification, incorporates the arrangement of marriages, understands particular powers and duties offered by titles and estate holdings, ritualistic through hierarchy and class, establishes the foundations of the social contract, upbringing dependent upon type of use to land held as a tenant. Next is held in possession. Now, the reason this was first introduced into the topics before discussed was to evidence to everyone, regardless of race, color, creed, etc., that there is a common bond that we as a majority can all stand as unison, in unison as one. And so come to realize essentially we are all connected through the caste system. Absolutely. There is no higher concept that can be stated as the primary control system over the statuses and subject matters of the world. Okay, let's move into the law in bullet point form. Okay, we begin. English law is principally the system in which secures a right to use of land or a piece of land called an estate or interest. It began before AD 1066 to then move into a 10-year system. Right of possession over land and the things used to give it value was established in the Doomsday Book through an unlawful act of conquest. So began this 10-year system. Today's estates of land is held under free and common socage, with fee simple absolute being the highest or largest interest a person can hold, and it gave right of ownership to secure mortgages. Estates can be held either in possession or expectancy, and of expectancy they consist of two sorts: reversion or remainder. It is a hierarchical system that offers rights of use to land. It is influenced by social stratification. An estate in land is measured through quantity and duration, which is next measured through its enjoyment based on the availability to make profit. It relies on contract and trust. Common law or equity are what English law establishes as property rights thereunder, whereby it suffices to say common law is the unwritten law, whereas equity are rules written. Common law governs rules of contract. Equity governs over rules of a trust. Either contract or trust can be expressed or implied. Estates are transferred through either act of parties or operation of law. All estates come into being first through a life. All lives are involuntarily granted the rights to be included in the English law through the capacity of a tenant. Federal and provincial and state governments record events of birth, not the infant as a flesh and blood being. Every individual is first a tenant for life, subject to the common law state, not subject to a trust. Every individual declares possession of his estate through not terminating the common law state, not subject to a trust. Dependent upon one's status and subject matter, one is either speaking to matters not subject to a trust or matters subject to a trust. A trust for sale scheme was established in 1925 under the strict settlement, not subject to a trust. And government holds the second level of use to land, and a citizen and corporations share in the third level of use. A trust for sale is either settled or is being settled to then move corporations, citizens into a fourth level of use to land, meaning no more fee simple ownership in property. Today, the public narrative hides the true purpose of the need to settle a government's charter under a trust for sale scheme. Okay, now this of course is far from an exhaustive list, but serves to support the subordinate topics discussed in video 2 about the great taking and video 3 on monetary or modern monetary theory. The main point to take away from this video's introduction is to evidence a few obvious points in reference to our rights. First, rights that are inalienable are separated from the subject matter of any group. It is the group that, when agreed to, overreaches inalienable rights. In other words, the cost of joining a group is a reduction of an individual's superior right that exists naturally before a group is formed. It is the assembly of a group that identifies an agreement to a particular subject matter. We are all subject to a caste system and the laws it has created to enforce a right of use to land. At the end of the day, it is the system, and by its very nature proves that your absolute rights are secured by notice of an agreement to join a group. The provision of absolute rights stemming from nature is secured through the creation of a society. They never commingle in the same fashion that neither does common law or equity. The takeaway, now as we finish this conclusion about law, is knowing the choice to remain declaring possession of an estate within the system or begin to settle one's birthright of the English law. More importantly, it evidences no one is enslaved or placed into involuntary servitude by the very fact that the English law has laws sanctified that protect one's right to leave the group. Okay, let's move on to the great taking. In bullet form, documented proof that all estates and interests called personal and real property under a charter and next to Constitution, termed the corporations and citizens collateral, has already been absconded. And this includes money and savings and inventories and private holdings. This is everything that's attached in the world. Paper certificates moved into book entries from the paper crisis initiative that began in the 1960s through the CIA. This action was termed dematerialization. Book entries move now into digital records. All digital records are captured by custodian companies in each nation or a nation's group, such as the Depository Trust Company, Clearstream, and Euroclear, to list a few custodian companies. These companies act to, missing a word here, act to initiate the clearing and settlement of security transactions. These custodians serve as the primary holder of all securities, majority of which are bets speculating future financial market trends within the derivatives market. The derivatives market is 20 times larger in financial wealth than the global GDP. Could even be higher now. When these bets are settled according to the agreements placed within the derivatives market, you will not fully settle the estimated net positions held in the derivatives market. Those established as secured creditors, namely those interests of the central bank, will legally confiscate the share of each nation's custodian pool, of course leaving the custodians as the fall guy. If anything is left over, it will be divided through a pro rata share among those now defined as entitlement holders. This will be the greatest transfer of wealth belonging in the world, subject immediately, not immediately, to a trust in human history concerning the English law. No one today holds any world wealth regardless if one is free of debt or are holding long or short positions. Essentially, no one is immune from losing their collateralized interest. Namely, everyone, not a secure party, is determined with the rights of an entitlement holder. Okay, now we can now see how these estates and interests subject to a trust for sale that began in 1925 are running in tandem to what is being described by the public narrative explaining the derivative pool bubble. This has taken place no matter one's position and no matter how we react, since everyone is or will be reacting to the various levels of knowledge they have as pertains to their interests within English law. No politician, lawyer, professor, CEO, or family member or matter, Freemason, etc., who's subject to a patriot stand will stop this, as the subject matter of what started in 1925 has to be settled. We are left with only public narrative options, such as pay off all your debts to assist in staving off first attack of secured creditors, and to take time to lobby members of Congress or Parliament to remove the central banking system. Who is the secured party? Of what exactly? Only those termed assets belonging to and under offers of Parliament and government, namely second and third level right to the use of land. If you care about these positions, namely those held in second or third level of use, you will be left to be kicking and screaming while you're being pulled away from your collateral and assets, even your savings and pensions, and will be caught up in only yelling at those with no ears to hear, in my opinion. Plus, who the fuck really wants it? Let's continue. Modern monetary theory. Okay, let's extract some bullet points. Governments do not operate as a household. A sovereign government can never go bankrupt. Sovereign governments granted the right to impose its own tax. The revision of tax allows for the creation of money. Money is spent into a defined national territory for the purpose of collecting tax. A sovereign government does not need first to tax or need to borrow back its own money in order to fund itself. Taxing and borrowing of government allows government to control what it creates. Taxing and borrowing are tools to manage money held in the private sector. A government's deficit is representative of what is held in the private sector. Increase the velocity of money into the private sector was before an identifier for an increase in GDP growth. Government is responsible for fiscal policy it imposes upon itself. Central banking, since the 1970s, is in charge of monetary policy. Monetary policy acts to be the scorekeeper of by transferring units of money between treasury accounts and those of corporate banks. Monetary policy is charged with controlling inflation. Inflation was generally targeted to be maintained at about 2% in the US of A, being the second largest economy, so I just always use them. 2% means that 2% of a nation's citizens must be unemployed. That's built right into the system, man. Inflation is caused by too much money chasing too little goods. The banking system doesn't have or not have any money. They simply offer book entry services, coined as scorekeeper by MMT, on behalf of government's fiscal policy. Central bank does not take orders from government. Instead, government does as it is told according to the management of monetary policy, nor does government listen to the central banking system concerning fiscal responsibility. Money used to be subject to the fractional reserve banking system. Today, loans create deposits. MMT offers solutions for rearranging the system's understanding of how money works within the financial markets. Okay, now as you are well aware, I'm extracting points necessary to weave the tapestry for full viewing. It is now clearly apparent that there are more than the surface level descriptions that's responsible for removing what we term as property rights. Take property rights away, as we can see evident that they have already been taken away, a lot of them, yet to be made public fully and completely, and no citizen or corporation has a voice. We are witnessing governments acting in total opposition to what its electoral divisions are demanding, as their constituents are face to face with looming financial ruin. Not only are rights and financial statuses being dissolved, but common sense debates are being quashed in favor of liberal squeaky wheels, as well as we are experiencing a detachment from fundamental morals and ethics. We have to remind ourselves that only a flesh and blood human is charged with filtering actions through morals and ethics, and any fiction of law, such as a title, body politic, a bar union or its courts, a church or a corporation, are not of life, and so can never be raised to the same standard of any human. It is always up to each individual, but this type of individual must not provide evidence that they are first under a parliament or government or religion or belief from which they exercise the rights of, or the rights intuitive understandings of morals and ethics, because these are subject to the filter of fictions of law first and not of man. And this includes offers from the monarchy acting as superior caste. And so this must be firmly understood. We as individuals are always holding initially a superior dominion right over land, and of course are possessed with intuitive morals and ethics. As a result, we should now navigate all titles according to having knowledge of their self-imposed limitations. Now we are in the driver's seat. What is money? I'm just going to offer this. Okay, I'd like to offer another measure so as to really begin to see the room that the now status quo have inadvertently boxed themselves within. What is money? Some points hereafter taken from the work of Professor L. Randall Ray, an MMT advocate and teacher. Money is an institution. It is not a thing. Money acts as a measurement, such as pounds and lira, kilometers or miles, quarts or liters. Okay? Money is representative of an IOU. So money measures indebtedness. Money must be redeemable to its creator. Lawful money is backed by hard currency such as gold or silver. Fiat money in circulation today is backed by the full faith and credit of the creditor. Money proves the IOUs of government, which are just the legal notes of tenor, which are promissory notes. Cryptocurrency is not money, as is not an IOU or redeemable to the issuer. The system is moving from money into another control system of account. After quantitative easing and the recent pandemic, goods were limited and more money was made available without having the goods available for spend. Is this a controlled demolition? When those in charge of monetary policy knew the result of an economic slowdown followed by an influx of money would naturally result in higher inflation. Too much money chasing too little goods. Now, before we go off half-cocked, stirring essentially the dust in our attics for the proverbial torch and pitchfork, or looking for the wheel to next grind our axe upon, the system is doing exactly what it was designed to do centuries ago. But how many knew this? You do now, or you're beginning to know now. It can be compared to fighting the inevitable completion of a game of Monopoly and now being mad at the Parker Brothers Corporation. Is it Parker Brothers? I think it is. For writing the rules you had agreed to follow on the advice of those you play with. Who is going to listen to your rant? No one, nor will I care to listen to it, to listening of their current plight, since in the end they will be forever discussing the problem, therefore still agreeing to the game, and just arrive in a complete circle jerk. There's absolutely nothing, well, in my layman mind, that we can do except get up from the table, help to put the pieces back into the box from whence they came, the title deeds, utility companies, and release attachment to the taxes collected, let go of our houses and hotels, our tokens we use to get around the board, but more importantly, our attachment to that fiat money and the wealth it assumed, and so begin to return to our true power. Be reborn, in other words, by removing the nails that held us mentally to the central banking ledger, the cross we had burdened ourselves to carry. so as to walk in our own footsteps, not made by another's will. I suppose, or I suspect, excuse me, a follow-up video on solutions will occur, but perhaps we can speak to the basis of history of law to pinpoint our agreements by way of holding what is termed as property, rather than agreeing to the use of sovereign money. So what are we actually agreeing to that keeps us transfixed or glued to the system? I hope this video helps. And you can go to the links provided for information about the law, the Great Taking, MMT, and Professor Ray's videos on his discourse about the history and nature of money. Please like and share as always. If you don't like or make some comments, sure, let's get to some solutions. All ears are open. Okay, and I'm sure a lot more are open now as well. And hey, any donation is also greatly appreciated. And remember, with this new information, now it will be revealed to you for the first time that you can make a real choice, not just a systemic one. And with that, I'll leave you on that note. God bless. Let's get her done.